Welcome to Everything You Need to Know About the Ascension of Humanity, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern science and spiritual evolution gets real. I'm Heather, an energy healer, channel, and spiritual coach with Divine Ascension Company. Each week, we're diving deep into the mysteries of human consciousness, spiritual awakening, and the profound transformation happening within us and around us. But here's the thing. We're not doing this with our heads in the clouds. We're bringing neuroscience, psychology, quantum physics, and cutting-edge research to the table alongside meditation, energy work, and timeless spiritual teachings. Because the truth is, the ascension of humanity isn't some far-off cosmic event. It's happening right now in the choices we make, the awareness we cultivate, and the healing we do within ourselves. Whether you're curious about how mindfulness literally rewires your brain, why shadow work is backed by depth psychology, or what coherence between your heart and mind actually means scientifically, you're in the right place. We'll explore practices like breathwork, meditation, and emotional alchemy, not as abstract concepts, but as tangible tools grounded in both spiritual wisdom and scientific understanding. And here's where it gets even better. In our bonus episodes, you'll hear from real people sharing real stories. These are the warriors, the healers, the everyday seekers who've walked through their own darkness and found their light. They'll share their breakthroughs, their struggles, and the resources that actually helped them along the way. Because personal growth isn't a solo journey, and you deserve to know you're not alone. So whether you're just beginning to question the nature of reality, or you're deep in your spiritual practice, this podcast is your companion on the path. It's time to expand, to awaken, and to rise together. Let's begin. What does it look like to stop chasing love and approval from the outside world and find it inside yourself instead? That's the question at the heart of today's episode, and my guest has lived it from the inside out. Angie Hawkins is the Inner Glow Coach. She helps women transform from people-pleasing and perfectionism into radiating confidence and living happily as exactly who they are. She's also the author of Running in Slippers, a memoir that covers one of the most honest and vulnerable 5-year stretches of her life, from losing her dad to an intentional overdose to the moment everything turned around. What I love about this conversation is how much Angie and I have in common. 2 women who hit rock bottom, looked up, and decided to make it mean something. We talked about the limiting belief that we don't deserve love, what it actually looks like to rediscover your identity after losing it in other people's expectations, and why sometimes the best therapy is bungee jumping in New Zealand. We also talked about feeling the fear and doing it anyway, not as a motivational phrase, but as a literal practice Angie has applied to skydiving, cliff jumping, shark diving, and her own life. This one is raw, real, and for anyone who has ever felt like they were running from something that kept following them, no matter where they moved, including, possibly, to Hawaii. Let's get into it. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Angie Hawkins. She's an inner glow coach who helps transform women from chasing love and approval, which I'm sure we can all relate to at least one time in our lives, to radiating confidence and being happy and free and loved for who they are, which is just an amazing, amazing thing to do. She's also the author of Running in Slippers, which I'm really excited to hear about. She's done some crazy things in her lifetime. I'm very intrigued and I'm excited about this conversation. How are you doing today, Angie?
I'm good. How are you, Heather?
I'm doing great. It's been a great day. So why don't you go ahead and get started and kind of let us know who you are?
I am Angie, the Inner Glow Coach, and my origin story, so to speak, starts in childhood. I was raised in a home. The best way to describe it is that both of my parents were very emotionally unavailable. And as an adult, I understand what that means, and I can understand why they were the way they were. But as a child, you just don't have the tools or knowledge to be able to interpret that situation. So the way I interpreted the situation is I developed a belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. And as you're probably aware, your beliefs dictate your behaviors, and then your behaviors dictate what you experience in your life. So, needless to say, I struggled for a very long time because I was a people pleaser and perfectionist. I was always chasing my worth and things outside of myself. And I wasn't happy. I knew it was like a very unhappy and unfulfilling way to live, but I didn't know any other way. So this continued into adulthood, and I didn't really feel like I could do anything about it. But then the first turning point came in 2017. My dad passed away, and I was only 37 years old, and I had spent 37 years repressing my feelings, trying to numb my feelings and run away from my feelings. But I was in such profound grief that it was impossible not to feel my feelings. But I didn't have the tools for emotional regulation or processing any of it. So he died early that year. So I basically spent the rest of the year feeling like shit because I had all of these feelings and I didn't know what to do with them. And, my mom was emotionally unavailable. So I didn't really have anyone to talk to about it. And then the year turned over to 2018, and I was finally sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I was like, okay, I want to be happy and I want to do something to make myself happier. And I was living in Chicago at the time. So I decided that I was going to move from Chicago to Hawaii, which in hindsight, it was definitely well intentioned in the sense that I was actually taking agency over my life and doing something to be happy. But it wasn't well intentioned because I was still reaching for things outside of me to be the thing that made me feel better. So you cannot move away from your problems. And I moved to Hawaii, and it was still me having the same experience, simply in a different environment. And there were like a few major things that happened right off the bat that really set the tone of the move not being the thing to make me happy. One of them was, this was in 2018, so it was before remote work was the trendy thing to do. But my job allowed me to move here and keep my job because I was working in corporate America at the time. But right around the time I moved, there was this huge management shakeup that threatened my role. So the first year that I lived here, I lived in constant fear of losing my job. I also had a really hard time making friends, which was something that I had never experienced in Chicago. So I didn't even really know what to do with that. And the other major thing that happened was to prove like how all in and committed I was to my decision. I bought a brand new condo immediately, like within the first few months of living here. And a month after I closed on my condo, a shared building pipe backflowed into my bathroom sink, and I wasn't home. So my entire condo flooded. So all of the stuff I just mentioned was all within the first few months. And then for the next 2 years, it was just like thing after thing after thing. Like my grandma died. It was like always something. And then COVID happened. So I don't think I have to describe how that exacerbated the situation. But then the straw that broke the camel's back was the end of a relationship during COVID. And I reached this point where, like, one part of it was, I think we all experience this phase of life where, because when it rains, it pours. So we all have these moments where we're like, I can't handle this. I can't take it. When does it end? So I was absolutely feeling that way. But layered on top of that was the sheer feeling of hopelessness because nothing had been going well. And I was just in this state of mind where I truly could not see any hope for the future. And that is such a dangerous place to be because it ended up in me intentionally overdosing on my anxiety medication. And I spent a day and a half unconscious in my bathroom. I spent another day and a half in the hospital. And then when I was released from the hospital, I came home and I called a friend and I told her everything that happened. And I remember I ended in saying, I can't believe I didn't die. And her response was, it's not your time.
Mm.
And that was so profound. Even in the moment, it sent a cold chill through my body. And in that moment, it just kind of like snapped me out of that like victim mindset because I was in this mindset of like life is happening to me. and there's nothing that I can do about it, which was really contributing to that feeling of hopelessness. But I just kind of snapped into this mindset of like, okay, the way I have been living hasn't been working out. I want to live a different way. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm the one who's accountable for figuring that out and making the changes. And so that moment completely turned my life around. And
Wow.
I'll stop there because there's definitely more to the story, but that's like the main chunk of like how I got to where I am today.
That's interesting. I mean, I have a similar story. I mean, I didn't intentionally overdose, but I went through a very rough period of time that was very similar to that. And it's I self-medicated. I didn't care. I didn't think I would live to 30. I honestly didn't care whether I
Yeah.
lived or died. And it's that was the catalyst to my transformation as well. Because one day I looked in the mirror and I was like, I don't like this person that I'm becoming. Like I turned all my
Yeah.
emotions off because I'm an empath and I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
I shut everything down. I was drinking and doing drugs all the time. And I just became this person, that slow spiral of like not caring about anything or anyone and then not caring about myself and just letting everything go. And I just like, I don't want to be this person anymore, you know? And
Yeah.
it's a shame that it took an overdose for you to reach that point.
Yeah.
But I totally believe that, you know, we choose our life before we get here. We choose
I
the
believe that too.
experiences, yeah, the lessons we're here to learn, and we're presented with exit points. I flipped my car. I didn't have a seatbelt on. I hit my head a few times. The drug I did overdose once, not intentionally. My heart stopped for like 2 minutes. We're presented with these exit points, these choice points where we can go or we can stay. And when you come back from that, like your soul is telling you it's not your time yet. And you at a
Yeah.
soul level have decided that you're still here for a purpose. So I'm glad you're still here.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah. No, that's like the realization that I came to when she said the words to me. And I know that may sound weird, but I don't think I would have came to that realization on my own because I was still in not really a good mental space. So I was just kind of not even thinking clearly. But when she put it like that, I was like, "Oh my God, she's right." Because it's like I'm still here and you know, over time I had more time to reflect on it and I think exactly how you do because it's like I chose this path for myself because so many people have asked me like if you could go back and change something or if you could go back and like tell your past self something or maybe give them a warning sign. And my response is like, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't warn myself of anything. Like I would let it play out exactly how it did because that's how it needed to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. People are like, "Oh, I regret doing this. I regret." I'm like, I have no regrets because
Same.
all the trauma, the sexual abuse, the drugs, like all the toxic relationships, everything made me who I am now. And I wouldn't have learned the lessons and had the opportunity for growth without them. So
Yeah.
it's yeah, I don't think that I would change anything either because even though it was hard in the time going through it, it made you turn into this amazing, beautiful person that wouldn't have learned those things otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I truly believe because once you start talking to other people who have, because I feel like the human experience is generally the same. Like the nuances are different, but I feel like we all generally go through the same things. But I feel like the people who've gone through the hardest stuff are usually like the deepest, most like beautiful people to be around. So it's like I kind of wear it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, 100%. So do I. And it's unfortunate that not everybody who goes through hard things, you know, takes the time to self-reflect and like break the cycle and learn from it. Some people just go deeper and deeper. But
Yeah.
again, as I said, like we choose our life, we make our choices. We all have our own journey, our own path, and that's the experience that they want to have. And you just kind of have to have respect for people and let them make their own decisions, but also, you know, keep that compassion and safe space for them to like not be worse, I guess.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
hmm So tell me more about being an inner glow coach. What does that look like for you?
So, yeah, actually, I'll give you the backstory to that, which is a continuation of the story that I just told. So, because again, I was working in corporate America for a really long time. And so when I had this epiphany, like I'm here for a reason and I want to live my life a different way, I had tried traditional therapy before. It obviously hadn't been working. So I decided to invest in myself and hire a coach. And through working with him is how I started changing that belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. And it took time, but eventually I got to this place where I did love myself, I did respect myself, and it felt like this warm energy coming out of my chest. And even the people around me would make comments like, "Oh, look, you're glowing. I can tell you're glowing." And so I started calling that the inner glow, which was basically me basking in my own self love. And through going on my own journey, because I was a people pleaser and I was always like giving myself to things outside of myself, I had to rediscover who I really was, because when you live your life that way, you lose your entire identity in these things outside of yourself. So, in discovering who I really was as a person, I realized that I had blindly been following society's arbitrary rules of like going to college and getting a stable job and like doing all these things that look good on paper. And I realized I was like, I'm miserable. I don't like my job. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to be a coach myself and help women through the same journey that I went through. And I called it inner glow coaching because of that feeling in my chest, because I was like, that's the transformation that I'm guiding women to. So yeah, I ended up quitting my corporate career to start my inner glow coaching business.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I tell people all the time because they're like, "Oh, I'm in this relationship. I'm so unhappy. Like I don't even know who I am anymore." Because we
Yeah.
have a tendency to conform to the expectations of whether it's your job, your relationship, your parents, and you're not being your true authentic self. So when you get out of those relationships or situations, you have this beautiful journey of really going through and discovering who you are at your core without those limitations or expectations that other people place on you. Then
Yeah.
there's also that level of getting over the expectations you place on yourself as well. But
Yeah.
it really is a beautiful journey. And I think people are scared of that rediscovering yourself. But I think it's amazing.
Yeah, because I have a lot of women who come to me, they're like fresh out of a breakup or fresh out of a divorce, and that's the exact story. They completely lost their identity. And yeah, there is definitely a fear. I think it's just mostly the fear of change. But yeah, it's such a beautiful process because through my own experience and the people that I've worked with, it's like you are so much happier when you're living life as yourself, like free of everyone else's expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's your favorite part about being an inner glow coach?
Ooh, I think making an impact on people's lives, because ultimately the transformation is living a happier and more fulfilling life. Like it does affect relationships or money or like specific things, but none of those mean anything if you're not happy and fulfilled within yourself. So I think it's really fulfilling to be able to pay that forward to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I even with my coaching and stuff like that, I love when there's two things. One, I love when you see that light go off in someone's eyes when they
Yeah.
have that aha moment or they rediscover something or have a realization where they're like, "Oh, that makes sense. Oh my gosh." And then two, the transformation that you're talking about, to see that glow happen, to see that happiness, that whole like black and white night and day change in people after they start going through the process of really discovering who they are and what kind of life they want. And it really is beautiful to witness.
No, I totally agree. It's really enjoyable.
Hmm. All right, so tell us about your book, Running in Slippers. What's that all about?
So, running in slippers, I'll explain the title because I feel like that's the question most people have, and then I forget to even talk about it. The actual story about how the title came about is in the introduction of the book, so I won't give that away. But basically, what running in slippers means is I live in Hawaii and we call flip flops slippers. So it really means running in flip flops. And running in flip flops is a metaphor for life because running in flip-flops and life. It can be adventurous, playful, and fun, but it can also be dangerous, painful, and scary. And the idea for the book, and also the overview of what it's about, is it's memoir, and it covers a 5-year period of my life. And it starts when my dad passed away, and it takes you through the whole train wreck of how I got to the overdose and a little bit afterward. And it's extremely vulnerable. And the reason that I wrote it that way is because I feel like we tend to, we go on social media, everything's filtered and edited. Even in real life, we tend to wear a social mask because if you ask someone how they're doing, they're just like, oh, everything's fine, I'm good.
Mhm.
But we're all going through like really hard shit. Life is hard and we're not talking about it. So I'm like, let's just talk about it. And the idea came about after my dad died because I was in such profound grief, and we live in a just get over it society. So after like a month or so, people just expected me to be over it. And if I was still sad, people would question why I was still sad about it. And I just really saw this contrast between like society, again, like the filters and edits and how I felt inside. And I was like, there have to be other people going through hard things. But at that time, I I was not a confident person. I was like, there's no way I could write a book about my own life and like publish it for people to see. So it was just an idea. But then after the overdose, I like in the initial days, I just felt like I needed a sense of purpose, and my intuition kept guiding me back to writing the book. So it again, like I didn't know what my purpose was. Like my friend had made that comment to me. So I'm like, I must be here for a reason. I don't know what it is. Intuitively, the book felt like it was part of my purpose. So I was so driven to write it and put it out there.
Awesome. Yeah, I just finished my first book. I haven't published it yet, but
Nice.
I'm really excited about it. So it takes a lot to
It
not only
does.
tell your story in a vulnerable way, but like just to put it all out on like all on paper so you can see it. Because you know what happened. You were there, you have the memories, but to see it
Yeah.
on paper, it just has this other level of reality to it that you're just like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Are you going to do an audiobook? Because that's like a whole separate level to it.
Oh, I am, but luckily this book is a lot more about does have some of my life story in it, but it's a lot more
Okay.
about the spiritual program that I created, and
Okay.
it goes through the different steps and it kind of explains why it's important and
Oh,
my
that's
life,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, like my life story that goes along with it. But I have a feeling that my memoir is going to end up coming out at some point because my life has been absolutely a roller coaster. So,
Yeah.
but I do plan on doing audiobooks, and I'm sure that reading it out loud is going to add a whole nother level to that.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I
Because
can
it's
only imagine.
almost like I can't even explain it because I actually did the audiobook like later than I published my paperback in Kindle. So it was like several years later since the very inception of the process, but it was like I was reliving all of the events as I was speaking them out loud. So
Mhm.
just so you know, there is that.
Yeah, I can only imagine, but that's tomorrow, not today. So we'll get there when we get there. So I'm going to ask you about jumping out of a helicopter and bungee jumping and skydiving and cliff jumping and all of these amazing adventurous things that you've done. It might sound unrelated, but I'm going to tie it into what we're talking about. So why share some of that experience with us and what that felt like for you?
Yeah, so most people think that I'm an adventure person and I enjoy doing those things. That is not true. How it started was it was after I moved here, I heard of this concept of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And that was like really novel to me because I always just assumed successful people just did not have fear. So they were able to do all these great, amazing things. And then I learned this concept. I'm like, oh, they still feel fear. They're just not letting it hold them back. So to like put this in practice, I planned a solo trip to New Zealand and Australia. And to me, that was the scary thing to get me out of my comfort zone and feel the fear and do it anyway, because I had never traveled by myself before. And now I have and I love it. But that was the first time. And in researching New Zealand and things to do, allegedly bungee jumping was invented there. So if you go to New Zealand and you're researching things to do, like that is the thing to do. So I'm like, if I'm doing this, I'm just going to go all out. So I went bungee jumping when I was in New Zealand, and it was totally terrifying, but it also totally embodied this concept of feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And not only that, like I distinctly remember how terrifying it was. And this was in 2019, and I still very vividly remember how scary it was. But I also very vividly remember the sense of pride afterwards, because it's like I proved to myself that I could do the scary thing. And so there was like this huge sense of pride afterwards. So after bungee jumping, I decided that like adventure things was going to be my thing, to put this theory of feeling the fear and doing it anyway into practice, because I have this theory that if you don't push yourself, then life is going to push you, and it's probably going to be in a way that you don't find very pleasant. So I like to periodically get myself out of my comfort zone and push myself in these ways. And again, I don't necessarily find them enjoyable, but they're definitely more enjoyable than some of the life lessons that I've had. So for me, adventure things are just a way for me to experience feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
That's amazing. And that's kind of my whole point. Like, there's so many things with the healing journey, with the spiritual journey, with, rediscovering who you are and making life changes to just be happier, really.
Yeah.
And there's so much fear around change and around pushing the envelope and around questioning. And it's like, yes, there's fear, but would you rather take the chance or would you rather continue to be miserable? And just the fact that even something like skydiving or bungee jumping, which is a more physical aspect of that, of facing your fears, can have such a profound impact on, like you said, that sense of pride and accomplishment and satisfaction that like you did something that you were afraid of. You lived you lived through it. You lived to tell the
Yeah.
tale, and it completely changes a lot of things.
Yeah, I actually tell people, like, if you're afraid of changing your life, then go bungee jumping or skydiving. And trust me, like, the change that you need to make in your life, like, will not even seem that scary anymore.
Do people follow your advice?
No. Although,
It's good advice, though.
yeah, actually, I just talked to someone a few weeks ago. She said she was going to go bungee jumping, like, meaning at some point in the future, but I don't know if she's going to follow through with it.
Yeah, those are still on my bucket list. I haven't done it yet. I haven't pulled the trigger, but it's not out of a sense of fear. It's just time and money at this point.
Yeah,
But
also bungee jumping's kind of like, I don't, like, for instance, I don't even think it's available where I live. So it's kind of like location dependent. Although I
yeah,
think skydiving's more widely available.
yeah, yeah. But you have to do it when it's nice out, and I'm usually really busy those times. So it's gonna happen. I'm gonna do it. I'm not afraid. I'm gonna do it. I've been traveling a lot and like getting
Well,
out of my
also,
comfort.
it's like for you, like you've already lived a life, because so I did bungee jumping again in 2019. I went skydiving after almost dying. And it's like when you go through like a situation where you almost die, I don't know about you, but I kind of have this, I don't want to call it apathy, but it's kind of like if it's my time to go, it's my time to go, because I truly believe like I have a time,
Mhm.
and when it's my time to go, I'll go. So it's like if I die skydiving, then this is how I'm going to die. So I'm assuming you probably have, because of your experiences, like a similar feeling of like
Yeah,
kind of not being a fear of, like, I'm not afraid of dying anymore.
yeah. And I've never been afraid of dying, but I
Oh,
I completely
interesting.
agree with you. I to swim with sharks is number one on my bucket list. That's
Oh,
gonna
I've done
happen.
that. That's actually
Yeah.
really scary too. But
I'm
same thing. I
obsessed
was
with
like, if this
sharks.
is how I die, this is how I
Yeah.
die.
I wanted to move to Australia for a long time, and everyone's like, everything there can kill you. And I'm like, well, guess what? Everything here can kill you too. It's just different.
Yeah. You
It,
know
and
what's funny? But people like to project fear, because I went to Australia once and I went on this hike, and the guide was like, okay, there's 25 species of deadly snakes in the world. 11 of them are on this hike. I did
Thanks.
not see one snake the entire time I was there. So there's like a lot of fear propaganda in Australia, but it's really not that
Yeah.
bad.
I have a friend who lives there, and I want to go. I'm gonna end up going at some point. But every time I tell people that I want to swim with sharks, they're like, "Well, aren't you afraid you're gonna get eaten?" I'm like, "Listen, I love sharks so much that if I get eaten by a shark, I will be happy if that's the way I go out. Like it's fine." But like you said,
Yeah.
having a near-death experience kind of shifts your perspective, and it's like, I know that I'm divinely guided and protected. I know I'm here for a reason. I know that it's not my
Yeah.
time to go yet. So why not enjoy it while I'm still here?
See, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
Also, it's just badass to be like, yeah, I swam with sharks.
Hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. I just have to see a great white shark in its natural habitat. I have to.
Yeah.
I want to go to
See,
South Africa and see the breaching sharks. Like, I want to see one up close and personal, because even when you see them on TV, you can't really see like how massive they really are. I have to see it in person. I
yeah,
just
because
have
I didn't even see great white or tiger. They were like what are they called? Galapagos sharks.
to.
So they're like, they're big enough to be scary, but they're not like a great white or
Yeah.
tiger shark.
Yeah. I have to. I just have to. Anyway, so tell me about your how people can find you if they want to take part in your coaching services, or if they want to find your book or anything
Yes,
else
the
you have going
best
on.
way is my website, which is Inner Glow by Angie. So there's information on the book. It's available on paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. And I have all the consolidated links there. And again, the audiobook, I narrated it and it's in my voice because I know audiobook listeners like that. And then there's also information on my coaching program, which is called Shine from the Inside. And I used to offer a free 60-minute find your glow session to everybody. Now, to work with me, it's an application process. But if you fill out the application and say that you heard me on this podcast, then I will set you up with the find your glow session. And what that is, in my glow method, the G stands for go back to your childhood, because as I was mentioning before, when I was a little girl, I had this limiting belief that I didn't deserve to be loved. So all of my other limiting beliefs and behaviors or whatever were all spawned off of that one limiting belief. So in this call, we go back to your childhood and figure out what your one core limiting belief is. So even if we don't continue working together, like that information is golden, because you can take that wherever you go. Like even if you want to do traditional therapy or try some stuff on your own, just having that knowledge and just even being aware of how you're showing up in life is tracing back to that limiting belief is really powerful. And everyone I have that call with has a breakthrough. So, yes, I will offer it to anyone who hears me on this podcast.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you and hear your story. It was absolutely amazing.
Yes, thank you for having me.
If you're ready to stop surviving the ascension and start actually moving through it with a map, the Self-Spirit method was built for exactly where you are. And if you want a little taste of what that might look like, my book, Becoming Divine, is now available. It's the foundation, the framework, and the permission slip all in one place. Find the program and the link to purchase the book at divineascensionco.com. You were never meant to figure this out alone. I'm here. Let's do this together.